Welcome to Herbally Yours, an adventure into the world of natural medicine. Here is your host, Dr. Ellen Kamai, the natural nurse who will help you take the leap to ultimate wellness.
Greetings, and thank you for joining me, Ellen Kamai, the natural nurse, for another edition of Herbally Yours, right here on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. And remember, you can also listen on iHeartRadio and many other podcast places. Herbally Yours brings you the latest information about the many facets in the world of natural living. Today, we are so pleased to have as our guest Dr. Matthew Budoff. Dr. Matthew has an extremely long bio, so we'll just give you a shortened one because he's a professor of medicine with David Geffen School of Medicine at UCLA and the endowed chair of preventive cardiology at UCLA Medical Center. He has also written for many journals, including Clinical Cardiology, Journal of Invasive Cardiology, and he sits on their boards as well. And he has been named to America's Top Doctors, U.S. News and World Report Top Doctor, and was awarded the Albert Nelson Marquis Lifetime Achievement Award, and also named the world's most influential scientific researcher, one of them. So a lot of accolades to you, Dr. Matthew J. Budoff. And our topic for today, with all your deep research and accolades in medicine, is an interesting one because we're going to talk about, something that's very common to many people, and that is garlic.
Yes. Yeah. I've been researching garlic now for probably about 15 years.
So I'm interested also in your interest in what is called preventive cardiology. How would you classify what that means? Does that mean taking a lot of blood thinners?
No. So preventive cardiology kind of tries to get people before they've had their first heart attack or stroke and really try to work on multiple ways to prevent those events from occurring. So diet and exercise, supplements, as well as some traditional medications in the mix to try to keep people healthy.
So that's a great explanation. But I would just tend to differ with the use of that word traditional, because as an herbalist and as the natural nurse since 1964, I love to support the word traditional for things that really are of traditional use. So while it's true, certain pharmaceuticals can certainly be helpful for medical conditions, really our topic for today, garlic, is truly a traditional remedy.
Well, that's true. It goes back thousands of years as a therapy for many different ailments.
So many. And I've been looking at, your discussion about it. So what made you interested in it in the first place?
Well, garlic's been shown to help with blood pressure. It's also been shown to help with cholesterol. So I thought it could slow down blockages building up in the heart. I thought it could specifically help slow down heart disease. As a supplement. And it was actually, we started studying it and trial after trial showed benefit.
Isn't that amazing? Because wouldn't you say in all the places, so many places around the world, it is certainly something that's used all the time, both as a folk remedy. I mean, even it's said to deflect vampires and evil influences when you wear it around your neck. And although that sounds funny, when those uses were developed, they did not have microscopes, but they might have just noticed that it did help. And of course, it can be antimicrobial. So there's such interesting folklore as well as history. And now with someone like yourself, really well-versed in scientific data, also science. So all those things work to support the use of garlic.
Yeah, it even was used in the very first ancient Olympics as a performance enhancer. The athletes used to take garlic before their events. So it definitely has a storied history.
Now, I never heard of that one. And there's a way I would think, now that you've brought it up, of why that would be something that could work. Because you know what? Even when we go into the energetic essence of various herbs through the traditional Chinese system, garlic would be considered what we call a yang herb. And a yang herb is something that would be traditionally used to increase strength. So it's got such a wide variety of both folklore and science.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. It's very, very interesting to understand the history of garlic as well as its current uses.
But now I know you're talking about, like, in terms of the topic, that something went on. I don't do Twitter and I don't know what these things are too much. I don't know. But that's because I'm old. But there's a trend that supposedly started on TikTok, which I've never gone on TikTok, so I don't know. But it started very recently this year in 2022, saying that people should put garlic in their nose for COVID.
Yeah. So I guess over almost 100 million people have posted clips shoving cloves of garlic in their nose. It's thought to help with COVID and stuffiness brought on by cold or flu. So that's become some folklore that's now become popular among a lot of the people watching TikTok.
So with all your in-depth understanding of the many positive effects of garlic, and we just talked about people using it traditionally throughout history for so many things, would you recommend that as a way to use it?
Well, I think garlic has great antibacterial and antiviral effects. It definitely helps with inflammation. So all of those things make sense. I don't think putting the clove in the nose is the right way to get it into your body. So I would say it's the right therapy and the wrong delivery.
Wow, what a wonderful medical way to state that. And let me reintroduce you to our listeners today. Thank you so much for listening. And you are with us here on Herbally Yours on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm Ellen Kamai, the natural nurse. And today, my guest is Dr. Matthew Budoff, who's an eminent physician, and we're talking about garlic today. And the first thing is that on TikTok, and maybe some of you actually go on there, I'm sure you do. He's talking about multi-millions of people have seen the concept of actually placing a slice of garlic inside your nose. As an herbalist, Dr. Budoff, I would say that some people would get an irritation because of that, because it does have some very, very strong chemical components, and people have various levels of sensitivity, particularly in a sensitive area such as the membranes inside the nose.
No, absolutely. And when we started studying garlic, we actually studied a purified form called aged garlic extract because it had a lot of less of those toxins and was much easier for people to take. Again, that was by mouth and swallowed, but still, your point is very well taken. Raw garlic can be very toxic, and also, obviously, the smell would be tougher to take if it was in the nose.
Yeah, I would not recommend that. I'm afraid that several people, first of all, not everybody knows their various sensitivities. And that's something, if you do insist on trying it, I would put a teeny little piece first and see if you get a blister, which some people do. But it's such a popular vegetable. And it actually, in scientific terms, which is your focus, Dr. Budoff, there's been 4,520 or more now, because every day new ones come out, actually studies that are in the National Library of Medicine, showing that it actually is useful for not only infections, but also your focus, heart disease.
Yeah, it's remarkable how much research has been done with garlic over the many years.
Is there a favorite study that you would point us to?
Well, it's been studied in China for cancer prevention. It's been studied a lot for infections, and I've done a lot of research with it now for heart disease. So it's really been studied for the three biggest, issues that we face in our battle to stay healthy. It has components that help in all of those three areas.
So let's focus a little bit on heart, since that is your actual specialty. In what ways could garlic be useful for supporting a healthy heart?
Yeah, so, we studied it. Now we're doing our sixth post-randomized trial. So we're very formal studies with a placebo. So the patients don't know if they're taking the garlic or not. And we've looked at ways where it can actually reverse heart disease. So the heart plaque in the arteries actually gets better over time. We studied it for a year at a time, and then we followed up with a measurement of plaque using a CT scan, and we actually saw less plaque on follow-up in those patients randomized to this aged garlic extract.
So I have a few questions about that. What if somebody wanted to be involved, like be a subject in one of these studies? Is that something open to the public, or do they have to be patients at your facility?
Well, there are studies being done everywhere. There's studies out of Europe and Australia, as well as in the United States. Obviously, it's a proximity issue. It's anybody can participate if they, we have certain types of people that we're studying, but anybody can participate if they fit those entry criteria. Sometimes we require that they have diabetes, or sometimes we require that they have high cholesterol or high blood pressure. It just depends on what specific interest we're looking at. But no, these trials tend to be open to the public, and people can definitely participate. And I'm not familiar of any immediate ones that are going on right now in your area, but people can go online to the different universities and see if there's any studies that they can participate in.
And there actually have been much more so because of COVID and our current pandemic situation. One of the positive things that have come out of that, I think, is a vast opening in the legality of telemedicine for doctors and other healthcare providers, to where things like that might be more available. Like it might be a study at your university, Dr. Budoff, but yet someone in New York could have meetings with you or people working with you, telemedicine, and then a local physician can write an order. You can go to a lab over wherever you are. So I bet that is going to open up to more of the public access to these studies.
No, absolutely. We've learned how to do a lot of things virtually now, and you're absolutely right. There'll be more and more opportunities to participate remotely in a lot of different things, and see doctors who are remote, by video, and really make it a much smaller world than it used to be.
That's right. In a lot of ways, less distance. I mean, it doesn't exist anymore. It's a very weird concept. But what about if you were to participate, let's say, in a garlic study? Because one of the things I know people who are interested in participating in natural product studies. Some are run right here in Florida out of the Life Extension Institute, who works with some of the local hospitals, but they didn't want the other thing that you get, sometimes it's called a placebo. They didn't want that to be a pharmaceutical. They were okay with, let's say, you either get like an aged garlic capsule, and we'll talk about what aged garlic is soon, versus, let's say, just a capsule with olive oil in it, or just some other oil that looks the same but does not have a pharmaceutical.
Yeah, a lot of we use corn oil, we use mineral oil. There's all different types of placebos that are used in different studies. Sometimes they're natural, sometimes they're cellulose, something that just can form a pill substance. It just depends what we're trying to emulate. If we're trying to emulate a pill, or if we're trying to emulate a liquid.
It's got to look the same, so someone can just look.
The doctor doesn't know what they're taking, and so the doctor remains blinded as well as to the therapy. So they don't know; they can't break the code.
So it would be interesting, because I'm sure you're familiar. There's some, in terms of oils, there's some really excellent studies showing how increasing your consumption of certain oils, such as olive oil, for instance, also positively affects the cardiovascular system.
Yeah, some remarkable data. Literally, increased use of olive oil makes people live longer as part of the Mediterranean diet. So, there's definitely some very positive oils out there, and fish oils have also been shown to be very beneficial, the omega-3s.
Right. So you couldn't use one of those as the placebo if you're trying to look at the activity of an aged garlic, let's say.
Right, right. That's why we stick to usually to corn oil or something like that, something a little more neutral.
So very interesting. Well, let's talk about, we're throwing out this word aged garlic. What does that mean? You harvest your garlic and let it sit there until next year? Like, what exactly is aged garlic, Dr.
Yeah, no,
Budoff?
so this company, it's actually grown out here in California. They age it for about 120 days and under special conditions so that it kind of becomes smoother. It gets rid of some of the oxidants. So they call it aged garlic extract, and they age it until the composition is correct. But it's kind of like thinking of going grapes into wine. As you age something, the composition can change, and what happens is that you lose a lot of the oxidants, a lot of the noxious substances kind of get filtered out, and it becomes a much smoother, much and it's odorless as well, substance.
So that's one reason. And using aged garlic, have there been studies comparing using this garlic, which is processed in a particular way, no chemicals, it's still all natural? Is there a comparison in any study that you know of using that versus the same garlic that has not been aged?
Yeah, there was a study in Stanford where they used 4 different compositions of garlic. One of them was this one, and one was raw garlic. The problem with raw garlic is, it probably varies the content of some of the chemicals in the individual cloves. So it would depend on the size of the clove, how you cook it or how you process it. So there's a lot of, it's a harder thing to study, natural garlic, because it's not as reliable as far as the dose goes every day. When I give aged garlic extract, I'm giving exactly 600 milligrams per capsule. It's a little more quantifiable and a little more reliable from a research perspective.
That sounds like it makes sense. And of course, some people shy away from using garlic because of having what's known as garlic breath afterwards.
Right. And that nice thing about this is it's odorless, so I can't smell my participants and know if they're in the garlic group or the placebo group because it's odorless at both sides.
So garlic has all these many positive activities, like you're looking at it in terms of cardiovascular wellness, and you said you evaluate that by looking at the amount of plaque buildup. How do you assess that?
By doing CAT scans of the heart, we have these specialized scanners that can look at the heart. We can measure the amount of plaque, amount of blockages and cholesterol buildup in the arteries at baseline. And then we can repeat that study 1 year later and see if it's gotten better or worse.
Well, I had a test like that, which I really think should be more widely used, just using sonograms.
Yeah. You can do sonograms in the neck to look at the carotid artery. That's another approach. We've done that as well. But we really wanted to kind of get to the heart of the matter, if you will, and look at the heart arteries, because that's what, unfortunately, is the number 1 cause of death still. Even COVID is the number 3 cause of death. We hear a lot about that, but heart disease is still the number 1 cause of death, even with all the pandemic raging. So it's really, trying to get to heart disease has been my goal, and really try to focus on ways of improving the heart health.
But I just want to do a little shout out about that sonogram, because that's such a non-invasive test. And when I've got it done exactly what you described, Dr. Budoff, they do the carotid, they also do the inguinal and some other areas, but sonograms seem like it's just not like x-rays. There's very little input of any kind for the amount of information that you get back.
Yeah, it's literally using sound waves. So it's very safe to acquire ultrasound.
Right. So I'm thinking it should just be used more. There's so many things that should be used more. I just got an amazing test called the Nutrivalve test, which I'm familiar with since the 1980s, but I got it redone recently. And it tells you so much about your physiology, like even very minute things that might be in your Krebs cycle, like malic acid and other deficiencies that can make such a difference, because when the body gets to a particular cycle and one parameter is deficient, it doesn't move forward smoothly. So I just think it should be part of conventional testing, and using natural therapeutics like you're talking about here with aged garlic really should be part of mainstream medicine.
Yes, no, I totally agree. There's really interesting studies out there and testing methods, and a lot of them are also becoming more remote, where it'll be your iPhone that does the testing with a little adapter, maybe.
It's so true. And I want to thank you so much for doing all this research in natural medicine, because as it is more well supported by people like yourself with a bio from here till doomsday in terms of, all the things you're recognized for, being a professor and all the accolades that you have. So when you say something, it carries a lot of weight. Do you still find that you have other doctors that, kind of poo-poo that because it's not pharmaceutical, something like using aged garlic?
Yeah, we're seeing much more adoption of these therapies, much more less reluctance because the science is coming out. I mean, I think, to be fair to some of the doctors, when you have randomized trials that show pill X works really well, and then you have people claiming that, some natural product Y is great, but there's no science behind it, it's a bit of a leap of faith. And now that we have science behind a lot of these, nutraceuticals, I think doctors are much more willing to adopt them into their practice. And I've seen much less reluctance and much more utilization of things like garlic, like fish oils, other natural products, coenzyme Q10, vitamin K. There's a lot of things that have been thought to be or known to be heart healthy that we're now more using on a more regular basis.
And I'm all for that. And of course, it's even the concept of just the pill technology. I mean, while even aged garlic, you're sharing with us all the wonderful things that it can help someone with, if they're not willing to change their exercise regimen or their food regimen, there's still only limited progress, I would think.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Definitely food and other supplements have been really dramatically, the understanding of them and the benefits of them are much better understood now.
Right. So when people go to a doctor like yourself, a cardiologist, or, certainly a diabetes specialist, they should really be getting a sheet of paper, not just someone saying, oh, eat healthy, while they're looking at the monitor to try to find a code so they can bill for the visit. I am really sorry to say it seems like that's what most of medicine has devolved to. Having a comprehensive approach, all based on like what you're doing, which is really solid clinical evidence. But, what is the downside of taking an aged garlic capsule versus some of the pharmaceuticals that might claim to reduce plaque?
As far as other pharmaceuticals?
Exactly. When we look at the safety ratio, let's say.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. I mean, there's we've studied vitamin K2 reduces plaque, and I've done work with both fish oils and garlic to reduce plaque. There's really great studies, and as you said, the safety ratio is astronomically better when you're using a natural product. Either one that's formulated into a pill or even just dietary, like the olive oil study where they just took extra olive oil in their diet and then ended up living longer.
It's so true. So not only the safety, but, with the efficacy and the cost. What about the cost? It's pennies on a dollar next to what a pharmaceutical would cost.
Right. Yeah, it's obviously, cost savings are dramatic with the price of pharmaceuticals these days. You can do it naturally.
Well, I'm so happy that you've chosen to use your expertise and knowledge to be involved in so many of these studies and also promoting this information. Where would be a good place for people to look to find out more?
Yeah, so, we have all of our work posted on garlic. You can go to, it's called kyolic.com, KYOLIC.com, and there's literally 1,000 publications and references there on garlic. American Heart Association actually has some nice stuff on some of these different nutraceuticals that have been studied for the heart. And my research, our website is called calciumscan.com. All one word, calciumscan.com.
Well, you know what? I was not given those websites, so I'm going to update because we do post these things when people listen to our show. This one we've just done archived. So I'm going to recommend that we add those to it so people can find out more about the study. And like you said, calcium scan, that's what I'm kind of talking about there, where you can look at what's going on in the plaque. You can have that done as well. If the doctor won't recommend it, there are organizations going around the country doing that, and they don't charge that much.
Right. Yeah, no, they're really trying to bring good public health to the masses and at a low cost option. And it's now increasingly being covered by insurance as well. So it's definitely, access is much, much better than it used to be.
Totally. I just got that whole NutriScan done, like I mentioned, looking at all the internal workings and what might be missing, and it was completely covered by Medicare. I was shocked. So we're going in the right direction, and thank you for all your work in that area.
Oh, well, thank you, and thank you for having me on. It's nice to be able to continue to get the word out to more and more people.
And thank you, listeners, for tuning in once again to Herbally Yours, produced in the studios of 90.3 WHPC, Nassau Community College, Garden City, New York. For further information, you can email us at whpc@ncc.edu. This is your host, Ellen Kamai. You can always find me at naturalnurse.com. Inviting you to join us again next week for another edition of Herbally Yours. Until then, stay healthy.